So, mockups, right. So, yeah, you can see the difference between the first one and the second one. And I originally had like a section for long breaks, but I just eliminated that because it was just redundant code for the demo today. And then this is kind of what I had for the second screen. And you can see I tried to get fancy, like I had buttons with little icon pictures on it, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to have one stop button just to make it easier. And so if you guys can go to the Chrome-extension-starter folder that I showed you guys to download. And did anybody miss the link to download that and wants to see it again? Okay, cool. Yeah, so this is the link, bit.ly/chrome-extension-starter. I'll give you guys like a couple of seconds to go to it and download it. Oh, also, Hack Night is this Thursday, so you should take the stuff that you learned today and use that to build something on Thursday. And we're also gonna we're gonna have fried chicken and mac and cheese. Yay, right? Fried chicken, not pizza. And we're also gonna do like little demos and little talks every hour or so to show you guys like another feature of a Chrome extension that you can possibly put in yours.
Time and place again?
So it's from 6 to 10 p.m. at the Culk on Thursday in, I believe it's Culk 102.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Culk,
Not here, not this building, but the other one. Okay. So so the parts of a Chrome extension, it's pretty easy. It's just one file called manifest.json file. So this has to be named exactly this way, and what it does is it tells Chrome what your extension does and what permissions you need. So if you need access to like the current tab that the user is on to do anything to that tab, then Chrome needs to know that, and your user needs to know that before they download it from the extension store. And then here are just like some typical files. You probably want a picture for your icon if it's the type of extension that people click on and something shows up. An HTML file, a CSS file, and any JavaScript files that you are going to need. And you can just keep them in the same exact folder. If you end up having a lot of files, then you can start nesting and you can just change your file paths that you put in manifest.json. So I'll show you guys really quick what's in the folder itself. So we have our icon, which looks like garbage in Sublime. Main.css, which is completely empty, and we're not actually going to put that much into it today. I kept the styling like really, really minimal. Manifest.json, which I'll go over in a second. And then popup.html is just your typical HTML file. It's got your head section. It's got a link that tells it that main.css is the style sheet that this HTML file is using. It's also got a script tag that tells it that the JavaScript that's for this file is popup.js. And popup.js is also empty and just a README file. So manifest.json. So it tells Chrome what your extension does. And here are the fields. It's manifest_version, name, description, version, browser_action, and permissions. And these last two ones are the more special ones, the less typical ones. So manifest_version, it has to be 2. Okay, it has to be 2 because if you put 1, Chrome will scream at you because manifest version 1 is deprecated. So it has to be 2. Name is just the name of your app. Description is like what you want it to show in the Chrome extension store. Version number is the version of your extension. And then for browser_action, since we want our extension to be a clickable one, here's where we tell what picture to use for that icon. And that icon also has to be a square picture. Chrome will resize it, like it'll either size up or size down. It's pretty flexible on that, but if you don't make it square, it'll start doing some weird things. And then default underscore pop-up means that when we first click on the extension, like what HTML does it show? And then here, like permissions. So if you're making any REST API call, you have to give the URL that you're making the call to. And if you're asking for permissions like to tabs or notifications, which I'll show you guys later, you have to also add it there. So we're going to go to our Sublime text, go to manifest. Yeah.
Yeah, so for the permission, it's an array instead of an object.
Yeah, so it's an array because you might be asking for more than one permission.
Okay.
So that way you can just list out exactly what permissions you're asking for. And if you guys are ever like wondering what permissions you're asking for, just Google, Chrome extensions permissions, and it should give you a pretty long list of anything that you might need to have permission for. So extension name, we're gonna call it tomato 1, and then it's gonna be Pomodoro timer demo, and I already have the right name for icon. So, can you guys see this okay? Or is this better?
Yes. That's good.
Okay. Okay. And then default underscore title. It's what shows up when you hover on the icon. The description there. That's what shows up. So, tomato. And then default pop-up is popup.html. And so back to the presentation. So that's all you need to do for your first manifest.json. For resources, so resources includes like images, HTML, CSS, JavaScript files. The first two that we're going to look at is the popup.html and timer.html. And those are just the screens that contain like what the user is going to look at. So, So popup.html is completely empty. And if you guys remember, we want popup.html to look something like this, right? So, so we wanted a pretty big looking text for tomato because it's the name of our extension. So it's going to be a H1, and I'm going to add here so it's more in the middle. And then we want our description for the actual extension to be pretty small because it's not that important. So I'm just going to use the small tags. And then we also had, so we had two sections. We had like a section where you can select the times for Pomodoro, and you had a section where you could select the times for the breaks. So since they're like smaller sections, but they're still pretty important, we're just going to use H2 tags. And then I'm going to wrap the buttons that you can click on to select a time inside of a div. And since I kind of want to differentiate between the two, the ID of the first one is going to be Pomodoro selection, and the ID of the second one is going to be break selection, right? And then it had 3 buttons in it. And I think we had 15 for one of the selections. I'm just going to copy and paste that. And change this to 25, change this to 45. And then I'm going to copy this entire thing for the break. And then change this to break selection and 5 seconds, 10 seconds, and 15 seconds. Yeah. Does that make sense to everybody? why I decided to do it this way. Or does anybody have any questions so far?
Can you explain the type, right? With button, type button.
Oh yeah, okay, yes. So when you have a button HTML element, you can specify its type. It has a couple of options. So if you do button, what you're saying is this has no default behavior. And so you can, in your JavaScript, then you can specify when it's clicked, do this. If you specify, like, I think type is equal to submit, and you put it inside of a form, it actually has default behavior that it will do based on, like, the HTML specification. And if you want more details, if you Google MDN space button, and then I think one of the first links is, actually I can do that right now and show you. So if you Google MDN button, and then this is a link. Mozilla Developer Network resources are awesome, and if you go all the way to type, it gives you a description of the different types that you can have and what the default behavior for that is. So, good question. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys how to load it, and there's also instructions in the PDF, the PowerPoint, sorry, with screenshots. So if you forget on Thursday, and even if you still have any difficulties, even like with the instructions, let me know on Thursday, and I can help you guys out. But the way it works is you want to go to Chrome://extensions, and this actually shows you all the extensions that you have in your installed or whatever. You want to make sure that developer mode is checked, and then you want to click on load unpacked extension, and then you can select the extension directory. So if you navigate to the folder that has the Chrome-extension-starter, and then you just select it, here you see, yay, tomato one's here, and you can see that it's loaded from this. And then whenever you're testing, I think most of the time when you do Command S, it actually like reloads it. But if you ever feel like it's not reloading, do just click reload on here. And this is a little confusing, so I'm gonna take away our old tomato timer because we had like 2 tomato icons. Oh, by the way, the icon was made by Titus, so yay! Thanks Titus for making the icon because I don't know how to make icons. So, okay, so this is what we have. And as you can tell, like it's really squished, and I actually forgot a couple of things to put a couple of things in there, like our text and the start button. But the reason why it's squished like this is because you have to tell Chrome using like CSS how large you want the pop-up to be. Otherwise, it'll just kind of squish everything like this. So the things that I forgot was we want to say like how long our break is. And I want the actual number to stand out to the user, so I'm going to use strong, and that's basically kind of like bolding the text. So I want to break for 10 seconds after every strong seconds. And I'm going to go ahead and give these IDs because later what we want is when we select the buttons, we want to be able to select that strong HTML element and actually replace the value inside. So this is going to be Pomodoro, and this is going to be break. Okay, and then I also want a button that has start on it. So here I'm actually going to do something a little different. So what I'm doing is I'm using an anchor tag because when I click on that button, I actually want it to navigate to the timer page, right? So when it starts, you want to see the clock ticking. You want to go somewhere else. So we're using an anchor tag for that, and we're saying that when you click on this button, you should go to the timer.html page. Okay, cool. And then, so yeah, so you can see that it automatically, like even though I didn't click reload, it automatically showed the new HTML page there. And the CSS that we're gonna actually put in is gonna be in main.css. So what we want to do is when we want to select the entire body and give it a height and a width and some margins. And I played around with this until I figured out the right values, but the height is, what is the height? I'm kind of cheating, like I printed out all the source code because my memory sucks, so. Oh, okay. So I can't cheat. So let me see what this looks like. Let's try, actually I think this is switched. Well, I can just check because I have the actual repo up. So, oh yeah, so the actual repo is gt-webdev/tomato. So you can see like the finished code of the working one. So it's, I had 150, 300, and 15 pixels. So, wait, what was it again? It was 50, 300. Okay. So, okay. $150, 300, and okay. So if we load this up, it should look better. Why does it not look better? It still looks off. Oh my gosh, I did not close the p tag. Whoops. Thank you so much. Okay, so it would automatically put the button on the next line, but since I didn't close the p tag, it thought that the button was still part of the p tag and therefore should be on the same line. So yeah, I do that all the time. Yay! Okay, cool, awesome. Yeah, so this looks pretty much exactly the way we want it to look. So we're gonna work on the timer.html page. So the nice thing about specifying your default underscore pop-up is if you're just working on the HTML, you can just change this to timer.html, and then the first screen that pops up is timer.html. So that's really handy. So I'm going to go ahead and create timer.html, and then I'm going to copy and paste everything from popup.html and stick it there. And then timer.html look like, it's a lot easier. It's just tomato, your Pomodoro timer, and then the time and then stop. So we're going to do that. Okay, so we can erase all the buttons, and then we can just leave our tomato heading and our subheader, and then we can, I think I use H3 for this. And it's going to be, I'm going to give it an ID of time, just because I'm not sure what else to call it. And then we're going to make another button for the stop, and its type is also going to be button, and then it's just going to say stop. And then I think this should be, wait, oh, let me reload it. Okay, so here's when you have to reload. Yay. So you have to reload if you modify manifest.json, because if you guys saw that when I clicked on it, nothing changed, but now when you click on it, there's something else, there's something different that shows up. So, and I actually accidentally left the start button, so we're going to erase that, and then boom, yay. Okay, it looks like what we want it to look. Okay, cool. Okay, so Warning, if you have any resources that you use from elsewhere, you have to declare it in the permissions. So when you're usually making a web app, it's pretty easy to like copy and paste a link. You're saying, hey, use Bootstrap, and it's from this link out in the web. If you're doing that in a Chrome extension, you actually have to put it in the permissions. So a lot of times it's just easier to just like download the entire source and then just stick it in a link or in a script tag inside your HTML. So testing versus shipping. If you're gonna ship, this is the easiest way is through this link, but we're not gonna really talk about that. But that involves like if you actually want to put it on the Chrome extension store, which if you make an awesome extension, you should do that. And then I showed you guys how to do the testing, and then I'll show you guys like we're gonna have to debug at some point because I'm sure I'll make a mistake and then we'll have to debug. So I'll show that to you guys later. And now we're gonna make the timer work, and it's gonna involve adding moment.js as a dependency. So we're gonna go ahead and Google for moment.js. So if you Google for moment.js, it is a really nice library that you can use for dates and times. So we're going to go ahead and download, right-click, save link as, and then just save it in your directory as moment.js. So, cool, so it's there, and then you want to add it as a script tag in your timer.html, and we're also gonna add another file called timer.js that is going to be the JavaScript file that we're going to use with timer.html. So we're just going to change this line from pop-up to timer. Okay, so what we want to do is so what we want is when the extension shows up, you want it to do something, right? So we're going to add an event listener, and it's going to listen to DOM content loaded. And we're going to call the init function when that happens. So right here, I'm just going to define the init function. And what we want it to do is we want the timer to just start when you click the extension open. So it should just start. So we're gonna call a function called start timer, and we're also gonna define another function, and what do we want to do? Oh yeah, okay. So in start timer, there's this really cool function called set interval if you want something to happen every so often, which is exactly what a timer is. You want it to tick up every second, right? So we're going to give it a function, and then we want this to tick every second, which is 1,000 milliseconds. So we're going to put 1,000 as the second parameter. And then what we want to do is we want to select this H3 and actually give it, select this and replace it with the current ticking time. So I want to do document.get element by ID, and then it's called time. And we're going to set the inner text to be whatever we want it to be. So when we start the timer, we first want to figure out like what the initial time is, right? So I'm sorry guys, my memory is It's lacking. Okay, cool. So if you look at the moment documentation, what this does is it just creates a moment object that's set to the current time. So that's all it does. And then every second, what we want to do is we want to calculate the difference between our start time and the current time. So we're going to create another, difference. We're going to create a variable called difference, and then we're going to create a new moment object, and it has this nice function called diff. We're going to give it the other moment object that we want to find the difference between, and and then what we actually want to get back is seconds. I think by default it'll give you back milliseconds, but we don't care about that. And just to make it easier, we're just going to set that, that inner text to that difference and not have it in the formatted version. So if you reload, yeah, so it'll start ticking up every second. So that's how you would make a timer. And the reason why, like, you don't want to create a counter and then just increment the counter and set your text to that every second, because set interval, even though you tell it, hey, do this every 1,000 milliseconds, it's actually more like, oh, Chrome, around every 1,000 milliseconds, can you please do it? And Chrome's like, okay, I'm doing some other stuff, but I'll do it in like 10 milliseconds. So if you do that, your timer starts getting like really, really, really inaccurate. So that's why we take the difference in the time, and that's what we set it to. So cool, that's a timer. So there's one problem with our timer, right? If you click on this, it restarts from the beginning, and you don't want that. You want it to keep ticking even though it's in the background and the extension is closed. So so that's actually like what background pages are there for. So we need something running in the background even when the extension is closed. Otherwise, the timer is going to restart every single time. And the person is going to be like, whoa, 25 minutes have passed. Like, what's going on? And it's because, well, it wasn't ticking to 25 minutes when the extension got closed because we didn't have a background page. So there's some things you have to add to manifest.json. You have to tell Chrome that you have a background.js script that's tied to your background page. And the reason why, like, we don't have a HTML page, you can have a background.html page, but here, like, it's invisible. Invisible. So it kind of exists in our imagination. We just know that this code is running in the background. And we're using persistent, don't click on things while you're on a PowerPoint because it'll move to the next slide. But we're using persistent is equal to false, and it sets our page to be an event page. So if you don't set persistent equal to false, that page just exists forever, and it's taking up resources in Chrome. So you know how, like, if you have 10 gazillion extensions and you're like, why the heck is my Chrome running really slow? And then you start investigating and you start killing off the things that use up a lot of resources. Well, we don't want our extension to be killed off by the user because it's using up a lot of resources. So for the most part, unless you really need that background page to be running forever, set this to false. It's just good developer practice to not use up more resources than you need to. And scripts is again an array because you might want to have more than one JavaScript file loaded into your background page. So we're gonna create a background page. Do you guys have any questions so far, or do you need me to go back to any code, or are you guys okay? Yeah, let's. Yeah, sure. Timer.html. Yeah. Sal, what's up?
In the background, you said persistent false. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, so it means that it turns your background page into an event page. Your page only comes to life when either a message is passed to it, which I'm going to show you guys later, or you open the extension itself is open, or for whatever reason, like your extension needs that page to be alive. Otherwise, it doesn't exist. Like it's not using up resources, it's not running any JavaScript, or it's not using up any memory. Like Chrome is such a memory hog, and most of it is because you have so many tabs. Like I usually have like 40 gazillion tabs open at any one time, and in 3 windows, so that's bad. But other times it's because extensions take up a lot of memory, especially the ones that just run forever. Like if you have a Gmail checker and it's consistently going to Gmail and pinging it how many unread messages you have, like that's running forever. So that's what it means. Do you guys have any other questions? Okay, everybody's good. Everybody understands it. But like, don't you see that? Like, you just made a timer, and it's barely any code. It's like this much JavaScript code, and HTML is super basic, right? So that's pretty cool. Except the timer doesn't work, but we're gonna make it work right now. So, okay, so the first thing we have to do to add a background page is modify manifest.json. So we're gonna add another field to our JSON file, and JSON, if you notice, looks exactly like a JavaScript object because it's basically a JavaScript object, but it's a little bit more strict. So that's why they look so similar. So we're gonna do background, and then we're gonna give an object, and one of the fields in this object is gonna be scripts, and it's gonna be an array, and we're gonna call the JavaScript file that we're gonna make background.js, and then we're gonna set persistent to be false. So, and then we're gonna go ahead and create a new file called background.js. Okay, so so this is what we have so far. So what we want is all the timer code, we actually want it to run in background.js, and we just want to send a message to our timer.js to update our DOM in the timer.html page, right? So because you need moment.js for the timer code, you actually also have to load up moment.js in the scripts array. And then here in background.js, because you added that to the scripts array, you now have access to all that code in Moment. So you can do any you can write any fancy time parsing whatever code that you want here. So so I'm going to show you guys how to do message. So we're going to pass messages from timer.html/timer.js to the background page and vice versa. So the way it works is if you want to send a message, you send it in JSON. If you want to receive a message, you add a message listener, which is a function, right? So from the sender, you're going to say something like chrome.runtime.sendMessage, and this is your JSON object. You're just saying command is set to start timer. And then your receiver can actually send you a response back, and you can handle that response however you want here. And here on your receiver end, which is going to be, it's going to go both ways because we want to send start timer to background page, and we want background page to be like, hey, update the time. So we're going to create a function, and the callback parameters are request, sender, and send response. And that's just given to us from the API of Chrome. And since we said command is start timer, that's how we can distinguish between the messages that we send. So here we can check if request.command is triple equal, it's supposed to be triple equals to start timer, then do this code, right? So we're gonna do that really quick. In timer.js, we're gonna say instead of this start timer, we're actually gonna copy this to background.js, and instead of doing this code here in start timer, what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna send a message to the background page to start the timer. So we're going to say command is equal to start timer. And we can take in a response. So if you're having a conversation with somebody, it's always nice to say something back to acknowledge that you've gotten it, right? So we're just going to console.log the response. So that's how you would send a message. Oh, why? I'm just going to do this on a new line just to make it easier to read a little bit better because it's kind of big. So chrome.runtime.sendMessage, give it a JSON object, and then when you get the response back, we just want to log the response. And then in background.js, we want to get the message back, right? So we want to, I think it was chrome.runtime.onMessage.addListener. So chrome.runtime.onMessage.addListener, and then where is it? Aha. Okay. So function request sender send response. Also, when you're sending a message, all your tabs can get this message. Or like all your pages can get this message. So it's kind of like a broadcast. So when I'm talking to you guys right now, all of you guys are kind of listening and I'm not just talking to Scott or Titus. So it's kind of like the same thing with your tabs. So we're going to add a listener and we're going to say if the command is triple equals. So triple equals, remember guys, is necessary for JavaScript. Otherwise, it'll convert your integers into strings and vice versa. And it'll do all kinds of funky stuff. So we're saying if it's triple equals, if it's start timer, then we want to call the function start timer. Oh, and we actually also want to send a response back. And when you use send response, you're sending another JSON object. So we can say the message is timer started. And you can see like this message right here matches up exactly with response.message right here. So that's kind of how like you make sure you print out the right thing. So let's try that and hope that I didn't type anything in wrong for it. So the way that you can actually debug your extensions is if you click inspect views background page, it opens up a Chrome console for that. And then if you right click inspect pop-up, it opens up another Chrome console. Oh, cool. Did you guys see that? It logged timer started. And that was because it sent the message and then it got a response back and it logged that response. And you see like nothing's loading because we never sent a message from our background script to the timer page to update the time. So we're going to do that right now. But that's basically like how you debug. If you ever have any errors, when you inspect either the background page, if the errors are in background.js, all your errors will pop up there in red. And it always sucks, but you get over it and then you fix it and life gets better. Or like when you right click on here and you inspect pop-up, the errors for this page, this HTML, and any JavaScript files that you've attached the script to pop up here. So So we know our message is coming through and we're getting a response back. So now we want to update the time. So here, this line, thankfully didn't error out because it doesn't make any sense. There's nothing on our background.js, so there's no way like it could have gotten anything here or set its inner text to anything. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to create another function called update time. And all this function is going to do is it's going to send a message back to our timer.js. So we're going to say chrome.runtime.send message, and then we're going to give it a command, update time. And this JSON file can be like whatever you want it to be. It's kind of like your life. You want it to be whatever you want to be. Okay. So we can just add another field here for fun, and we're going to say the time is going to be the difference that we pass into our update time function. And then we don't care about getting a response back from our page because we're going to be sending that time like every second or so, and we don't really, like, it doesn't really matter to the background what's happening to the timer.html page. So we're not going to do anything with send response. So this is going to go, I'm just going to stick it somewhere here for now. And then here we actually, once we figured out the difference, we want to update the time on the timer.js. And then in timer.js, we're also going to add some message listeners, right? So and the reason why like this order is particular, I'm adding the message listeners before I start the timer, because if I start the timer and I get any updates from it, I can't do anything with those updates if I haven't added the message listeners first. So I'm going to create a function that adds the message listeners, and then we're going to do the same exact thing we did in background.js. So we're going to copy and paste the chrome.runtime.onMessage.addListener stuff. And we're going to stick it in here, and the command we're looking for is update time. So we're going to set that there, and then okay. And then you guys remember that the difference was set to the .diff field, so we're going to do request.diff to get that data from the message. And then we're going to take the time and then update the text inside. Oh, is it time? Oh, whoops. Time. Oh, no, time. Yeah, sorry. My memory is lacking. So replace everything. Thank you. Appreciate it. Oh, you should like the next time I screw something up, like don't say anything, and then it'll screw up, and then you guys can see like what it looks like when you screw up, and then you can tell me like what I did wrong. But I appreciate it. Okay, so let's see if it works. So no, why is it not working? Oh, thank you. Yeah. Yes. Okay, yay, it works. Cool. So I'm going to show you guys another bug I ran into. So when I click this, look, it's working, right? But kind of, sort of working, right? It's flickering. And then if I open it again, it's flickering again. So so I ran into this and I was like, what the heck is going on? So the reason for this is we are starting the timer every single time we load the timer.html, right? We set it to the, where is it? Yeah, so right here in timer.js, we're setting it, when the content loads, we want to call the init function, and we're starting the timer and we are sending that message. So your background.js is like, okay, I'm happy to start another timer for you, and I'm happy to send all these messages to you. So that's why it starts flickering. So the way we're actually going to fix that is in background.js, I'm going to start a states object, and the reason why I'm going to start a states object is I actually found that it was easier to keep track between like the off state and like the state where you're counting the Pomodoro, and then the state where like you're doing the break. It's just a lot easier because you know how to transition between the different states, and you can keep like the information for each state separate. So our states object is gonna have like one field so far, and it's just gonna be off. Let's see. We're just gonna do garbage text because I don't know what to put in here right now, but it'll come in handy later. And then we're gonna create a current state variable to keep track of where we are at any one point. Oh, and then we're gonna create another state called Pomodoro so we can differentiate between the two. Okay, so what we want is we only want to start the timer if we're in the off state, right? So the first time this is run, we're just gonna do, we're just gonna set the current state to off. It's off by default, and we only want to start the timer if the current state is equal to off. And then otherwise, we're just gonna ignore the start timer call. And inside start timer, we're gonna change the current state to be Pomodoro. And that'll hopefully fix our problem. So, okay, ticking, yay, yay, no flickering, woo! So, it's a pretty interesting problem. Cool, so we did send messages, and that's really handy. And what we did was we moved the timer code to the background page. We modified the manifest.json to add the information about the background. And we also started like adding code in background.js to keep track of our timer and send the message back to timer.js to update the time. Right? Okay, so do you guys have any questions so far, or do you want me to pull up like code from a previous file? Come on, you guys must have questions. Like, what did I do today? I did nothing except watch Obama today. No, I did not shake
High five.
No, I was so the girl. I'm taking a break for myself and for y'all because it kind of gets really long. But the girl like starts talking, and we're like, why is she talking? Obama's supposed to be talking right now. Like we've been waiting for so long, and it turns out she's like this third-year aerospace major who wrote a letter to Obama, and Obama actually answered me. That's why Obama has basically caused a snow day today. So, for some lucky people, and not for some unlucky people, but yeah. So that was really cool, and she got a hug from Obama. Like that's like you have to be like an astronaut or like serve in the war, or like I don't know, like donated a huge amount of money or like I don't know something, right? And she wrote a letter. So if you guys want Obama to hug you, I think the easiest thing to do is write a letter. Huh?
Yeah, is it online?
I have no idea, but she said that she was like concerned with college affordability and that she was procrastinating on thermodynamics homework. Obama told that part, not her. Okay, so if you guys don't have any, are you sure? Questions, concerns? Yes, what's up?
Why is that add listener function in the timer.js instead of the init function instead of just put it outside?
Oh, okay, so you can actually just put it on the outside because it's not actually dependent on the DOM content being loaded. So I wasn't actually thinking about that when I was writing this code. I was just thinking, stick things that I have to do when the thing opens inside the init function. But yeah, you're right. You don't necessarily have to have that inside the init function. What's up? Middle.
Oh, so we're basically covering this on the hack night too?
So the hack night, I probably won't do this all over again. I'll stick this screencast, which hopefully will be pretty good there. The repo is there. The starter code is there for people to download. And I'm also, fingers crossed, gonna try to write a blog post that basically talks about this whole entire process so that people who like weren't here can look at it again. But I'm like, we were thinking a lot about this. We were like, should we do this again? But we really wanted to maximize like the amount of time for people to code. And like, I know you guys love listening to me, but I'm sure it's really hard to sit for like an hour or something and then try to code for 3 more hours. So we're just gonna scrap that. And what I'll probably do is, what we have planned right now is the first 10 to 15 minutes. I'll like do like a super mini PowerPoint. Here are the things you can do with Chrome extensions. Here's like links to documentation pages. Here's like a hopefully finished blog post maybe that might be written. And here's like starter code. Here's the repository for like a simple timer with things explained and stuff. So yeah, what's up, Colin?
So, like how different the processes for developing like extensions from Firefox or other browsers?
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't actually know anything about
Like,
developing.
if I wanted to make an extension, like how much code could I reuse between
So I'm guess. I'm just gonna throw out a guess and then we can look at it later. But my guess would be if I was on Firefox and if I was on the Firefox team and I was being smart, I would also heavily base my extension development on using HTML, CSS, JavaScript, because the people who want to develop extensions are probably web developers, and so it's probably similar. I think the things that would be different are like the specific API calls, but I would think that they'd probably have like a similar message passing and they kind of handle it in a similar way. But since the API calls are kind of all throughout your code, maybe you could reuse like the HTML file and maybe some like library button handler files, but a lot of it is just so specific.
It would be really cool if the structure is so similar that you can make your own classes that would check to see what browser it's running in.
just have a wrapper.
Use the right
Yeah.
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 That would be really cool.
Yeah, that's actually a really good idea. Good point. Yeah. Like you can make your own send message function and then it calls the right version depending on which browser. And I think somebody else had a question.
So you have from .1 and .10 message and are you afraid of other extensions that use that?
Yeah, so I don't know too much about how it works. I know that the way Chrome is organized is it spins off a new process for like all of its tabs that are from a different website. So if you have like 3 tabs from google.com, you have 3 tabs from amazon.com, that's 2 different processes. I'm assuming they sandbox their extensions the same way. So like all the messages that you set in your extension are can only be heard within your extension. And if you want to communicate with other extensions, I think that's possible, but you have to use another Chrome API call. Yeah, that's my guess. We can look at it after though, because that's probably pretty interesting how that works. You guys have any other questions? Okay, cool. Okay, so what's next? Stop, Safari. Oh my God, why? Okay, whatever. It's on, but it's not open. But I'm just gonna ignore it. Okay, so notifications. So we wanna notify the user when our timer is done. You wanna use rich notifications, which is the way that you can make notifications for Chrome apps as well as Chrome extensions. Do not use Chrome.webkit, which is what the developer guide actually tells you to use, because it's wait, where is it? Oh, what? I must have pasted the right. Oh yeah, no. This is this whole page is wrong. Okay, this doesn't work anymore. If you try to do if you do WebKit notification.create HTML notification, it will give you an error, and you will not know what's going on until you Google. So don't use WebKit. Instead, you want to use Chrome.notifications, which is actually really nice and simple. And if you know how to use this for this, you can make Chrome apps as well. So, that's cool, right? Okay, so first thing is we have to add to our manifest.json permissions to use notifications. And then this is kind of what the syntax looks like. So you give an options JSON object, the type basic. So the reason why we have to specify the type is you can actually make things like list notifications, or you can make things with an image notification. Like it's all really, really cool and extensible, and I can show you guys in a second. The title of your notification, the message you want to send, and then if you want to have an icon, where your icon is. And when you actually create the notification, it's chrome.notifications.create, you give it an ID, your options object, and then a function for what happens when the notification is created, like what do you want it to do. So the ID, you see we're doing this like funky thing here. What we're actually doing is we're taking the word notification and we're sticking the time stamp of it at the end. The reason for this is, I also ran into this bug. The reason for this is if you just use like notification as the ID, Chrome will not make a new notification. It will just update your old one. So if your timer is like dinging off a lot of notifications because you're testing with like 5 second, your new notification won't show up and you're like, what's going on? So you always want to make sure your ID is unique. And then, I have some notification notes. This function right here, you have to include it, otherwise it will error out. Even if you're not doing anything here, you still have to include this function as a third parameter. So, so we're gonna go ahead and create the notification. Where is it? Okay, so manifest.json, we're gonna add permissions, and we're gonna give it an array. And the only permissions we're looking for right now is notifications. So that should be good. And then the second thing we were editing is background.js. So we want the notification to come up when the timer has ended, which is at 10 seconds. So what we're going to do is we're going to, first, to clear a timer, you actually have to take the result of your set interval function and set it to a variable. So we're going to just call that timer. And then we're going to say here if it's over 10 seconds, right, if it's over whatever length time that we want, we're going to clear the interval. And that's how you stop your timer, and you stop it from doing things every second. And then we also want to pop up our notification. So I'm going to create another function called notify user. And in here, we're going to create our options variable. So you guys can see it. We're going to create our options variable. I think we had type, which is basic, and title, which is break time, and then message, time for a break, and then our icon URL. Cool. And then semicolon, unless you're working on NPM, then semicolon's optional. And then we're going to do chrome.notifications.create. We're going to make our ID. So I'm going to say that Pomodoro is my ID base, and then I want to stick the current time at the end of it. So we're going to create a new date, and then I think it was get time, and then we're going to stick our ID, our options, and then we're going to do a function that just says that the notification has been created. Cool. Okay. So, and then we have to call notify user here. That should work theoretically. Okay. So reload, and then so we're just gonna chill out for 10 seconds, and hopefully we get notified. 10 seconds are over. Yay! Okay. Cool. So do you guys see, like, that was super easy. You just kind of had to tell it what you wanted to be in the notification, and you were like chrome.notifications.create, and then boom, notification. And if you want like fancier notifications, yeah, Chrome. Let's see. There's a guide here. I think it's rich notifications. So you can make notifications that are as pretty as this, right? And then notifications actually provides you for on clicks. So if your user clicks on like a button inside your notification, because you can stick buttons inside your notification, you can do stuff like that. One of the ideas I had with the Pomodoro timer is when they click on the notification, it kind of pauses, starting the next period. So if 25 minutes are over, but you want to keep working and you want to delay your break, then when they click on it, they can just delay it and then start that break later. If you're doing anything like you're doing anything with mail, like Gmail or Reddit, you can have a link there so that when they click it, they go exactly to the Reddit page or the Reddit comment that shows up. And you can do pictures, you can do all kinds of stuff. So this is the basic one. Here's like a list of items, and you can do like specific formatting for each list item. Boom, image, very pretty. Progress bar, because why not? Because it's Chrome, right? And the nice thing about notifications is if you're not done with if the user just ignores it, it still goes into when my resolution was a little less big, it was up here, but there was like a notifications.
You need to go to the desktop and then have the space.
How do I do that?
All figures.
Oh,
Yeah, maybe it's
aha.
'cause your Chrome bar has like a ton of stuff on it.
Aha.
Maybe it'll show up.
No,
Oh man.
no, it doesn't, unfortunately. But yeah, you can see like there's a little notification, and it holds all the notifications from all your extensions and all your no. Okay. Cool. So that's notifications, and then the last thing we're gonna go over is local storage, and this demo is like a very small part of what the full version Tomato does, and a lot of the code it's like creating states, and it's like changing between the states. So we're just kind of scrapping that because like that's beyond Chrome extensions themselves. So local storage is super easy as well. You can store user settings, and if you find that you have needs beyond local storage, you can also check out Chrome.storage, which is another API provided by Chrome. But it's literally like this. You just pretend that you have a pocket called local storage, and then you want to stick your time selected. You want to stick a value, and you want to say, hey pocket, when I say break dash cell, return the time to me. So this is how you set the value, and this is how you get the value. So it's literally just like this magical purse, pocket, whatever. So so what I'm gonna do is to show that, I'm gonna add button handlers to the initial the initial page, so that people can click on like how long they want their Pomodoro time to be. We're gonna save that in local storage, and then the timer, instead of stopping at 10 seconds, is actually gonna retrieve that value and stop at whatever the value is set. So okay, so popup.html, it's gonna go to timer.html. Since we have been presetting our default popup to timer.html, we want to change that to popup.html back again. And when we reload, and then we click start, it goes to our timer. So yeah, okay. And then the next thing we want to do is inside, okay, cool, inside popup. Yeah, so be careful with notifications or else you're going to irritate your user. But inside popup.js, what we want to do is we want to add another event listener for when the DOM content loads. And then because I'm really bad with names, I'm just going to call this function in it as well. So what we want is we want to add click handlers. So I'm going to create a function called add click handlers. Okay, so what we want to do is, where is it? We want to, right here. Okay, we want to select this group of buttons and add a click handler. And we want to say, hey, if you click on 15, set the value to 15. If you click on 25, set the value to 25, and so forth. So we're going to do, we're going to find that group by the ID. So we're going to do document.getElement by ID. And then the ID was Pomodoro selection. So this is the div, right? And then what we want to do is we want to get all its child nodes. So we want to iterate over it, and because I want to be cool, I want to use the array for each function. But since the thing that it returns isn't actually an array, it's an array-like object, you have to use array.prototype.foreach.call and pass in the things that you want to iterate over. And what this does is it's saying, hey, iterate over buttons as if it was an array. And then whenever you give me each button, this is what I'm going to do to it. So here we're going to attach an onClick function, and so it's going to give us an event, and we want to figure out like what the button is, or like which button we had. So we're going to say specific button is equal to event.target. And then to actually get the time that was selected, we're going to do event specific button dot inner text. So we're just going to retrieve the text that's stored inside. And I don't know if this is necessary, but one cool way you can convert between strings and numbers really easily is just sticking a plus in the front. And then we're going to store it inside local storage. So, oops, wrong syntax. Use brackets, not parentheses. Okay, and then what we're actually going to do is inside of our timer, or in background.js, instead of dinging when it's 10, we're gonna get the time, time end, or yeah, time length or length, and then we're gonna say if it's in there. Pomodoro. What did I use? I used So we're gonna say if it's in local storage, use that. Otherwise, we're gonna use 10. So if it's not inside local storage, if you never click on the button, then this is gonna return null. So it's gonna take this value. Otherwise, it's always gonna take this value. Or we're just gonna use the length. So first, let's do, where is it? Reload it. And I haven't clicked on anything, so it should ding after 10 seconds. And then the second time I do it, I'll click on the 15, and it should ding after 15. So yay, okay, great time. And then when you click on 15, should also, or not. Okay, I broke something. What did I break? So, aha! Background page does not help. Why does it not help? No, don't hide my extension. Okay.
You
So.
need a special extension bar that floats on top of it.
Okay. So something's. Oh. Okay. The reason why. It won't break in background. It'll break in timer.js. What? Huh. What did I do? Pomodoro selection. Mm-mm. Okay. Maybe it'll air out a little bit nicer right now. 15. Yes. Hey, what? Okay.
Not set the text correctly.
No, but it, oh, wait. Why? I didn't change anything there though, so, okay, wait. It dings, but it doesn't update the time. So why is that? Or, oh yeah, it's really irritating whenever you open and close the extension, it closes the timer window. So. Okay. I don't understand life anymore. I am so confused. What did you say, Colin?
Great.
Cool. So, yeah, that was the basics of like creating a extension. If you guys look over the code in the repository, the more finished version, and you have any questions, let me know. Send me a Facebook message or ping me on Gmail or something. But yeah. So you guys should think of what you're gonna make on Thursday, and then do some research, and we'll be around to help. And I know like some of the technical committee people are also like trying to figure out what extensions they may or may not have time to make. So no promises, but should be a lot of fun. So, hey.